people are controlling our minds in that way. So if that's the case, the whatever the higher power is could be putting all the people on a path to destroy the environment because it causes more pain, and they would have no idea. They're like, oh, I'm fighting for my family. I'm getting
on a private jet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
private jet fighting for America.
Yeah, and so those people think they're doing the right thing, but in actuality, they're doing the complete opposite of what's great for the planet. So. But it's a lot of woo-woo stuff, but it's fun to talk about, right?
Yeah. Do any of them get you motivated to be like, I gotta do something about this? Or does knowing all this stuff make you go like, there's nothing we can do?
Completely debilitating.
Yeah.
We can barely do a podcast.
Why do you think we're drinking?
It really is. Together, Sam was the sober one, and then we drove back, and Shane's high, and I'm drunk, and we just started talking, blowing Sam's mind.
Yeah.
And the next morning he was like, what about a show where we drink beer and we talk about conspiracies? And that's where it came about.
Oh, that's great. So who took his place as the sort of guy that doesn't know?
The guests.
The guests. So we have a guest on,
right.
and they have various, usually they don't, unless we're talking, occasionally we have some people on that are really into it, and they're awesome because we can really get into some of the more finer details. But usually we're introducing someone to something they've never really heard much about.
Yeah, my wife used to tell me, she's like, some of these things you're talking about on stage, you have to give people a minute because they've not thought about that before.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't conceive. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's like pointing a chapter out in a book and the person's never seen a book before. You're like, what is this?
Right.
Like, oh no,
Yes, I did a show. We did a show called Kooks. Me and Ryan Singer and Billy Wayne Davis. Maybe, is that what we called it at the time? It is. It didn't, but it was the same. We were like, we're going to do a conspiracy show and talk about big thing, and so I used to really be into it, and somehow I've just.
Yeah, you didn't know what I was talking about, the Malaysian flight the other day. You were like, what are you talking about?
New Netflix series.
Oh, yeah.
I just watched that one. Have you guys seen that one?
No, not yet.
Well, we're thinking about doing a watch party with our fans. So we watch it.
That's a great idea.
Kind of like make fun of it or just sort of.
Yeah.
Did they talk to the guy?
It's like a topical news show, like a topical conspiracy news show almost, where you're like, this is the thing that's everybody's talking about right now.
Yeah, so
Before that, you're like Graham Hancock or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And you sort of break them down and do jokes within it and talk about it. That's
exactly,
yeah.
And then people can watch it. Well, it's almost like Mystery Science Theater. You're watching us watch something.
Yeah.
Kind of riffing on it.
So I haven't watched it yet because it's nice to do it fresh sometimes.
Did they discuss the guy that thinks he found it by using shortwave radio?
No, they
That's
talked
too
to the
bad.
guy. They talked to the guy who like found a lot of the debris, and they were like, "Did he really find it?"
Oh, right.
And the one like guy in New York, he's like, "I think he's a communist spy," and he's like, he didn't like leave New York at all to do any research. Like, dude, you're just on your laptop in a coffee shop. And they like talked to this this other journalist who actually went around, and she was like, maybe America did it, and it was like they did a really good job of giving every person their kind of moment in the spotlight to tell their conspiracy, and then like someone else being like, "That's a load of horse shit," in the next scene, and it's good. It's well made.
There's a guy that discovered so shortwave radios are constantly circling the globe, and airplanes move through them like waves, and it affects the shortwave radio. And he discovered where that wave stopped. He discovered like where the plane went down.
Those wave records stick around for a while, or like?
No, I can't remember. I think there's recordings of it or something, so he was able to go back. And
it's something. It was like a satellite thing. It was like Inmarsat, and it could tell where it was in relation to when it went down.
Crazy.
So yeah,
so cool.
But then people were like, "Oh, someone fudged the data and made it go this way," and then like Russian actors and.
I remember reading about the Kennedy, the one that died in the plane crash.
Oh yeah.
Which one?
I remember
it was
Junior, reading and watching a video.
Allegedly
and stuff.
died.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was more of yes, it was more like the records and the flight record, they're really strange.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's probably why the QAnon people were like, "Oh, he's back."
Yeah, they're like, he's gonna be his running mate.
I think it was more about that he was killed and not that it was that
Sure.
it was like I remember at the time because I was like, he just was a bad pilot and hadn't done enough things. What about? But that's actually not what it was.
Oh, interesting.
He had done like over the top the amount of flight time and all this kind of stuff, and you always had to. This would have been his first time flying, early on, first or second time flying on on his own, and there
Oh,
was like a
interesting.
delay in the pilot coming. It's like these weird
Interesting.
things that happen, and they're the way that the trajectory that it went down, and blah, blah, the way they said that he'd passed out, they couldn't have gone at that angle. So
Oh, I love stuff like that.
But I don't ever, again, when you that kind of stuff you watch, and you're like, less is obvious.
Yeah.
And then you don't know. The next video is like, yeah, that guy's full of shit. And you're like,
Yeah.
who do you,
Yeah.
But to me, those are the things that stood out. Like,
Yeah.
that's what, like with 9/11, like just watching those things pancake, and then
Yeah.
the same with World Trade 7 being like, okay, something's.
Yeah,
it's just
that's
crazy.
one that I still, to me, I don't think that. One, I don't think that what we've been told is the truth, and I don't think we'll ever know.
Right.
I mean, I think the truth is buried under that massive pile of rubble, figuratively and literally.
You're right.
Like, whatever that was about.
There was so many, like, at the different things. Like,
Yeah.
they're not the planes weren't real. The planes were dummy planes. Like, it was so endless to not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's so much BS you have to dig through to find
Yeah.
that one glimmer of truth, but it's like, well, there's so much to deal with.
Yeah.
And the number of, like, somebody shorted the stock for the airlines, like, in the days before the 9/11.
Yes.
So somebody obviously knew that
Yeah.
this was happening.
Yeah.
The guy that introduced me to, like, basically to conspiracy was a comic named Alan Park out of Canada. He used to be on the show Air Fart. He handed me this book, and it was like A to Z reasons to question it. And I was like, what? I hadn't even really thought about it, except for what my eyes told me at the time, And then there was a one for every letter,
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Wow. So was that the 9/11 the N, or was his
Yeah, where is that?
where does that fall?
Yeah. Where does what?
Yeah.
In the
we're
A to Z.
alphabet,
A to
yeah.
Z. Where does 9/11?
There was that many things
About
to question
9/11.
about 9/11.
Oh, about 9/11.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
from
yeah,
A.
yeah.
So I see.
You were like, how'd they do 9/11? There's no numbers.
There's no number. Yeah.
Well,
Jay was probably really
Yeah.
bungled up. Jet fuel.
yes,
Sure.
it had a few, probably.
Yeah, probably. A lot of three-letter
Yeah.
words that probably weren't good to talk about.
But I was interested too when I was talking to you. Like, he handed me this book out of nowhere, this Chaos book.
Great book. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read this book?
No.
Okay, so it is a great book.
I've read. It's like one of these things where you read parts of it.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And I've never read the entire thing.
But I was surprised that you knew the Manson.
Sure.
Like, that's a common knowledge thing. That's the first time I've ever read it.
Oh.
No, I think MK Ultra is a pretty. I would say that it's one of those conspiracies right now in this period of time that just comes up a lot, and so the idea that the CIA was doing thought control experiments on people, because we know that's true now.
Right.
It gets pulled into a lot of other conspiracies, and Manson's story arc has never really made sense. And
Yeah, I
so
didn't know that until reading this. I just was like, oh, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like whatever. I never even read Helter Skelter or whatever.
Yeah.
The story seems to have been told so many times that you know it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't know when I first heard that there was a link between CIA thought experiments and mind control and Charles Manson, but we covered it pretty extensively. And then it comes up a lot for us because it just sort of, a guest will bring something up and we'll tread back into MK Ultra and all those thought experiments and, mind control through LSD.
Right.
And then even recently we talked about just how much drugs have played a role in, like, for example, the government's attempt to create super soldiers and sort of defeat some of the common problems with the military, like sleep deprivation or, keeping people alert, awake, super strength that you can do through various drugs. And that's been, another part of that spinoff of just, and I guess some of it's even related to Operation Paperclip too, which is
I don't know that.
Yeah, what
So-
that
Oh,
is.
really? Wow.
So my conspiracy stuff started. I thought Kennedy. Well, I'm pretty old, so you know what I mean. It was like
sure.
the Kennedy stuff, and then once I realized, once I realized like religion was a thing that was kind of made,
Yeah.
then
Right.
I sort of had 9/11 and
Yeah.
I went down a moon landing thing one time,
Yeah.
but once I went down the money hole, then I was
Sure.
like, oh, they own money.
Yeah.
Well, then of course they'd own governments and all access to media and knowledge. Like, why wouldn't you? You'd be dumb
Right.
not to.
Yep.
So now I'm okay. I just, I think they're all open for fair game then. And so it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, but it's weird to be on that side and feel like you're like a like a left-leaning peace and love person, and then like now conspiracy is sort of lumped in with crazy and
right. Yeah, that's why we made our tagline "Make Conspiracies Fun Again" because it's gotten so crazy and like so like no one wants to like give you the time of the day. Like, oh, you're one of those people. It's like actually no, we're not those people.
Yes,
we have people like spamming us Instagram stories, and I'm like, you clearly haven't listened to our podcast. You're sending us like right-wing QAnon shit. You don't even know anything about us. Like this is just crazy to me.
Right.
So.
I would say that most of what we talk about is rooted in something that, we know is true and real. I
love this.
Like Operation Paperclip is a government operation post World War II, so that the Nazis had an entire science division that was in some ways groundbreaking, but some of that was because they were completely untethered from any moral compass outside of advancing the goals of the Aryan nation.
Right.
Which meant they were completely sort of greenlit to do any kind of experimentation that they wanted.
How are you studying the mind and not realizing while you're studying the mind, like how your mind is being manipulated to think down this one path towards Aryan race or patriotism? Like, how do you, as someone that is working on the mind, not recognize that you're being fucking manipulated? How do you not make that connection?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think because, like a lot of science, sometimes they thought many of these experiments would prove the end result, which is that there is a genetic superiority to the Aryans. It's failed spectacularly.
Right.
I mean, Jesse Owens was the thorn in Hitler's side in '36 at the Munich Games.
Well, in their defense, they were just getting started. You know what I mean?
They were getting warmed up. Yeah.
They didn't have time to do like a few generations.
Right. Yeah. So they
work out the kinks.
Yeah, they're beta testing.
But they were like, let's see if humans can adapt to breathing underwater if they're just forced into it. So they literally would just hold people underwater and see.
Wouldn't it be crazy if evolution worked that fast? If you did it to enough, one would be like, "Whoop, I can."
Yeah,
it's like everybody we waterboarded just turned into super soldiers.
Yeah,
that's not what we meant.
Yeah, and lots of drugs. I mean, they gave their soldiers a methamphetamine, which had horrific consequences for their military, but for the Blitzkrieg, for a couple of days, it really worked well.
Was that to keeping them awake and like, let's go,
and then then everybody got addicted to it and started killing their fellow soldiers for their meth.
It's crazy.
And
terrorists do that today, though. I remember that.
Yeah, so does half the country. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Half of West Virginia is doing that, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was it? We had some family in India that lost some people in this, so it's tragic. The Hilton shooting, or one of the hotel shootings in India, and they had like all those people were on methamphetamines. That's why they just were just getting shot and didn't care. They were just like doing stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, so that all this was going on, and then when the war was over, instead of bringing these scientists to justice like they did most of the Nazis, they brokered a deal where half of them came to the United States as part of Operation Paperclip, and half of them went to Russia to work for the Soviets. But we had essentially they were under the tutelage of John, is it John von Neumann?
Werner von Braun? Or is it John
he was the
von Braun?
The sort of
Neumann?
Child prodigy who ended up testing most of our bombs, atomic bombs. He worked in Montauk, which is the underground Air Force base on Long Island.
I know that area. I mean, I remember it from signs and stuff.
So Montauk is the real life basis for the Stranger Things TV show. Originally, Stranger Things was going to be called Montauk because of all the experimentation with time travel and everything that's gone on at Montauk. So cool. Yeah, if anything.
How far they get on time travel?
Oh,
they're still working on it, obviously.
Or are they? I mean, they're obviously, but I mean, the Philadelphia experiment's a huge
one. That's the biggest story out of Montauk is that they were working on radar invisibility and true invisibility, and they were running an experiment with a boat, and I think it's the USS Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I think right, and they made it disappear, literally disappear, not radar disappear. But what
David Copperfield did that with like
right,
yeah,
same trick.
Yeah. Al Qaeda did with 9/11. It was crazy.
What they really did was they shot it forward in time to like the 70s, and then when it snapped back into the 40s, there were soldiers like embedded in the fuselage. It was terrible.
Like they were alive still.
Alive
like half
still.
in, half out.
And people had seen it in the 70s, and they just ripped a terrible hole in the space-time continuum by doing this.
That's so weird that it's obviously terrible, but I'm like, that is so cool.
That's so cool, right?
Yeah. And that's one that kind of borders on, sure, there's a lot of speculation. We don't have any real proof, but that's one that at least it's grounded in
They didn't think to
Montauk.
film it?
I know, it's crazy. Maybe in the 70s someone was filming something.
Well, apparently they repaired it by building a time tunnel from the 40s to the 70s. So it's like no matter where you go in or go out, you only come like if you were to find it now and walk through it, you would end up in the 40s, and if you walked the other way, you'd end up in the 70s. Like you can't. It's a very limited way to time travel.
So you'd have to go back to the 70s in order to even go through it.
Yes, that's right. So you got to, it's really hard to get to that, and that keeps the ripple effect from affecting more. That's at least the conspiracy on it. But the Operation Paperclip, that's 100% real.
Why don't people get into this kind of stuff instead of like Kennedy's going to show up on the grassy knoll and give us?
No, right. Like, this is good stuff.
Yeah, this is fun. This is like story. Like it's the stories you used to tell as kids. They're still there. It's stuff that you enjoy talking about, and it's speculation is fun. You know, it's like fun to speculate what may have happened in the paranormal and all that stuff. But it's I don't know why people have to like ground so much of it in reality to where like, we're gonna storm the Capitol. Like, get out, chill out, bro. Yeah, let's have fun.
The best stories always end with
exactly. Yeah.
I
right.
hate that.
Yeah,
those are my favorite.
Like Unsolved Mysteries, the show. I used to bug this shit. Like they tell you at the beginning.
You knew what you knew.
I know, but it's at the end of every half an hour, and at the end they're like, motherfucker, come on.
That out of that whole project grew the fascination with mind control and how far can we push.
Yeah, and it's weird to think like through my growing up, through all, it's always, this stuff's always been out there, and people have always been like, that's bull, you know what I mean? That's just kooky shit, you know what I mean? And then in the last, 10, 15 years, now it's common knowledge. We're like, right? That's what happened. And nobody's like, hey, sorry for calling you stupid and a crazy person and putting you on medication. You know what I mean? Like,
no, for sure.
You've apologized a bunch on the pod to people. Like you just say it's horrible that we put all these people in a box, and it's like, sorry for doing that.
I mean, right. Because now we know like in the 50s, I mean, we laugh a lot about the CIA because like it's for like a good solid 2 decades they were like the Nazis. They had a blank check to do whatever they wanted.
But they're good now.
Oh no, they're great. They don't do anything wrong. No. But
that's how I was like when they were like the Russians was messing with our election. How do we know that? Well, because that's what we do.
Yeah, we do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they ran this cool test where, do you remember this one where they basically were like, can we get compromise on people? So they had these like prostitutes who would lure men into a hotel room that was completely wired and bugged with video. It was like apparently so easy to get government officials that like the project ended because they're like, this totally works.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So it's like, so then they moved on to drugs.
Except why would you start talking to the girl about secrets in the government? Like, what are you doing?
No, they would just
compromise.
They're just like, hey, by the way, we need you to say this. And here's why, because we've got you on film with these prostitutes, and we're going to give it to your family, and we're going to leak it to the news.
That's funny you say that.
And we got journalists in every major newspaper in the country, which is also was true still to this day. And so, like, you're done if you don't do what we want.
Yeah, it's so easy. They would if they didn't do it, they'd be dumb.
Yeah,
right.
And so they tried that with MLK, but it didn't work.
That's right.
They were like, we're going to tell everyone you're sleeping with women on sleeping around your wife if you don't kill yourself. And he's like, you guys will do it for me.
J. Edgar Hoover.
Right. She knows already.
Yeah,
why do you think she's been mad at me for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote.
Why do you think I preach that nonviolence thing?
Exactly. Like, don't shoot the messenger or the
adulterer. Corinna to be nonviolent. Yeah, it's crazy to think that J. Edgar Hoover wrote Martin Luther King Jr. a note that said you need to kill yourself within 34 days.
Did he really write that note?
Yeah.
Really
How do I not know that?
He really wrote that.
Common knowledge. It should be. That should start Black History Month.
Yeah.
Every month we should kick it off with a reading of the note that J. Edgar Hoover sent to Martin Luther King.
I didn't. We just.
He would definitely get banned on Facebook today. You can't even post that.
Yeah. I didn't know that until recently that his family, the surviving members of Martin Luther King Jr.'s family, his wife.
Yeah, they won a case proving that there was a conspiracy to kill him.
That's right. They won a case in Tennessee court, and like they've been trying to free Lee Harvey Oswald for a long time. And
which honestly, he's still kind of a piece of shit. I mean, that guy's not a good person. Yeah. Sure, he didn't do that, but maybe just
I don't think he actually did it.
You don't?
I don't think that Lee Harvey Oswald did it. I think that he would have. I don't think that he. I think he thought he was involved in a plot to kill Martin Luther King. And
okay, yes, he's like, yeah, I'm in.
I'm in. Like, we need you to buy the gun. We need you to set this thing up, and then
again, I've never looked into his story or his thing.
Oh, it's a crazy one. It's absolutely insane. Like,
it seems so obvious to me that those 3 were killed in unison. 4 were all killed in unison. You know, for a definite like, holy shit, we got to stop this.
Right. Or because the CIA, again, openly, now we know because of Freedom of Information requests, they were trying to fuel a race war.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it ties in with the Manson thing.
Yes.
Like, it's just so, it seems so true to me, like just reading those kind of things, but also just crazy that they're like, they can't be that connected and doing all this stuff. And like, oh yeah, they are. Why wouldn't they be?
Right. Yeah, and which is, again, it's like you see it in Russia where you're like, you know, Putin was always a master when he was in charge of the KGB of like pitting two sides against. Destabilization means, you know, amping things up where two sides hate each other more because it provides you more power to then provide the stability that you just destabilized.
I wonder if these guys, some of them are just naturals at it. Like, you know how in comedy there's guys that are just like, they're just easily funny. They can just walk out.
Yeah. They don't have the open mic.
There's the other guys writing it out and reading books on writing or whatever to figure it out. And like, are there leaders that are like studying, like, this is what I got to do. I got to pit, or are they just, you know, natural? They're natural dividers or crazy people. Like, what's the,
just born a piece of crap.
They just take they're just hot take guys. They're just guys that are like, they have a real hot take on something. And then as soon as
look at how yes, he's going to rise to power next time. The next Putin's going to rise to power through crowd work political speeches.
Didn't like that one? Try this one.
But then as soon as they get the hot take out there, they somehow are also in the audience
clapping,
saying like, "Hey, don't take that. Say something to that guy. That's not cool." And so they just are able so well to just stir the pot and get people riled up. And you know, I think we see it, unfortunately we see it because to be a conspiracy theorist nowadays, you have to I'm not on any of like the 4chan. I've never been on 4chan or any of the really dark corners of the web.
I don't even know it.
Yeah. 4chan is where Q from QAnon first started posting.
4chan? Is that what you said?
4chan, yeah.
4chan's a rapper.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I know 4chan.
I intentionally don't go to certain places on the web because I just think they're dark. They're dark places, but I do go to some message boards, Reddit mostly, and you see it there. You see people that are clearly instigating and trying to keep the conversation from progressing.
Doesn't the phrase conspiracy theory come from the CIA in the first place?
And they're the first person to use it.
So you have to assume that they're flooding more and more conspiracies that discredit the one to yes. It's how I feel like about religion, like that the gem of truth or whatever is in there, and then it's surrounded by all this poop.
It's gobstopper.
So you don't get to it. And same thing with conspiracies. It's like there's true ones and
and it's you're right. It is, I think, sometimes to avoid talking about really damning conspiracies. I mean, I think if most Americans knew, for example, what the Tuskegee experiments were, they would be horrified. But instead, we're chasing after like wolfmen or dogmen. You know,
the cool thing is that that's where I went and got my COVID shot because I knew they would have them. You know what I mean? Is that where that was?
Yep.
I knew they wouldn't trust the government there, so I was like, oh, I can go get my first COVID shot. There's no lines.
No waiting. I bet the DMV is awesome there too because they're just like, I'm not waiting in line for anything in this place. I don't want to. Who knows what's going to get stuck with.
Well, I like them all, and you know, I think the thing about in the Charles Manson story that we always sort of, it's a red flag for me is that, he was in this San Francisco mind control experiment where he was sort of patient zero for this one doctor who worked for the CIA that was really heavily involved.
It looks like there was 2 of them.
In the San Francisco office?
Yeah.
Or 2 patients?
No, there was like 2 doctors. Like there was 2 doctors with their
there was one that was trying to get him to go, woo, and the one that was like, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
So,
yeah. But it was after, I think, that there were several run-ins with the police where he was clearly in violation of his parole.
Yes, like that's what I mean. One of those guys was like his parole officer.
Right.
His parole officer and his wife took in one of the girls that was arrested with him, who was also breaking her. They took in her child, which was his child. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So there was a lot of weird connections,
Right.
and that yes.
And the same thing with Lee Harvey Oswald, by the way.
I don't know that about I've never known that about Manson. I've just
right. Yeah. Lee Harvey Oswald had a very checkered past and was constantly like, they were just sort of like, how was he let out of prison this early? Like, why wasn't he arrested in this? He wasn't supposed to have a gun, yet he was easily sold. It was all these things where you're just like, somebody with some power is allowing him to do a lot of this stuff. Yeah. And that's the same thing with Manson. So those are things I think that we are like, that's where it's a red flag for us.
I'd never seen any red flags in it, to be honest. I'd just been like, you know what I mean? They were partying too much, blah, blah. He's a crazy fucker. Right. He talked a bunch of people into killing for him. But that really doesn't make sense. Like, how do you talk people into killing a bunch of people randomly for you? Yeah. I don't know. But it's interesting because it was a lot of the combining LSD and hallucinogens with, like, I don't know if it was hypnotism, but it was definitely.
Which was a convenient way to make all those drugs and any drugs look bad. And people who took them question authority, and then those people look bad, and then they get. But it
was also about manipulating their minds while they're underneath it. So
and lack of sleep. What they did followed a lot of the same like patterns that cults use. So it's just like you find ways to like create, just destroy the person's ego, and then you build them back up what you want them to be.
So should we be worried about that now that more hallucinogens and stuff are becoming more and more like available and legal, and people are taking them, and they don't even know that these things are like they're more easily manipulated while they're under those things, or
I'll tell you one thing that I've thought of that is worrisome to me. I'm not a lifelong marijuana smoker, but I'm friends with people who've been smoking for decades.
Yeah, I know a couple of those people.
And all of them say in one form or another the exact same thing. They're like, the marijuana we're getting today is so much stronger and more potent than what I smoked when I was this age, or it's getting stronger and stronger. And all these stories, it would make perfect sense to me if on the one hand the government would be fighting this sort of war against marijuana while simultaneously helping it get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Kind of like the crack epidemic?
Yeah, very much like the crack.
And that's hard to say. It's hard to say when you're stoned.
Crack.
We do have the crack equivalent of weed now. I mean, basically like diamonds and like all that stuff, like moon rocks. Like that's just like the crack of weed. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that legalized marijuana is somewhat inevitable on the federal level, but there is something about it being forbidden that I think makes it tantalizing, at least to some degree.
I knew a guy, John Fox, the guy who runs the San Francisco competition, and like I remember when I was doing that, and he was going on and on about his suit. He smoked a lot, you know what I mean? Like you work with people sometimes where they like go through an ounce in 12 days or whatever. You're like, what are you? What?
Yeah, that's insane.
Like you either share too much or you definitely are the one guy with a huge problem. But he was like, once it's legal, I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? You're nonstop with it. And he's like, well, it just won't have the same thing for me anymore, and then I'm done.
Wow.
So I wonder if he stuck to that. I haven't talked to him in many years. So now within that, it's become legal, and I wonder if he stuck to it, or if he's like, I'm with the organic. It's got to be seedy. And
I do miss the old weed from college. Sometimes I'm just like, man, I just wish I had a half hour to separate my seeds and stems and just take a breather. And now it's like, just smoke it and go crazy. I'm like, okay, I guess I can do that.
But I could see where the government was fueling stronger marijuana in order, again, it's just a weapon in their arsenal. Because again, it's like compromise. They may never use it on you. And they could have compromising information on all of us in this room, and it doesn't need to be activated until it needs to be activated. And it's the same with marijuana, where it's like
you said may, but they do.
They do.
They obviously have compromise on everybody.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably right.
Sure.
I mean, if you've done anything in your life that's remotely embarrassing, there's probably a record of it somewhere that could be used against you. Should they need you to do something?
Yeah. I can't imagine how many videos they have from this angle right here that are not flattering for me.
Yeah, that's funny. If every time you turn your phone camera on, unbeknownst to you, your face forward camera is the government watching what you're seeing.
Or any video you're watching.
Yeah.
It just
watching
becomes
you.
a thing watching you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, those people that scam, people that like, if you're on looking at porn, they'll take a screenshot or a video of you while you're watching porn on your computer, and then they'll send you that and be like, if you don't pay us, we'll
I know a guy that happened to.
Oh yeah.
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 I remember a couple people like in the Facebook, like there may be a video about me coming, and they do that.
Did you get the video?
Yeah.
It didn't happen to me.
There was a comic in Raleigh that, you know, he was like live chatting with a woman.
Yeah, that's dumb.
And,
it's dumb. Like
Probably not a
woman. He told us all, like, hey, then to his credit, he was like, I'm not paying you, so just let it out. And
yeah,
you know,
there's an advantage to not being able to pay.
Yeah.
That's what happened. You know, that happened to Louis Anderson.
Oh, really?
Louis Anderson had a relationship with a gay escort. He was not out, and
that was back when that could ruin your career.
Yeah.
And the guy blackmailed him for a lot. I mean, like $500,000 or something. Wow. He paid it, and then the guy came back later and was like, "Hey, I need some more." And that's when Louis was like, "This is never going to end.
Right?
I just got to take the hit." And
I
he
didn't even
did.
know that story.
I didn't either till I heard him on Fresh Air with Terry Gross, and he told that story. And like that's when Louis Anderson just stopped getting booked and stopped being in films. Was when that came out, and then he sort of worked his way back from the bottom.
He had one of the quickest Tonight Show jokes. He was like, it was right during the Olympics. I think he opened with broad jump, killed her. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like some quick, like 3-word, bam, bam.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He played. Didn't he play like a transgender?
Yeah.
Something.
He played Zach Galifianakis' mom.
Mom.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
It was funny.
I had never heard that story, so it sounded like, I mean, he was maybe worried. It's like, it's kind of weird how it's like, oh, we'd all know that, and then like someone's so worried about it at the time, and then we don't even know about it. I know him from Baskets. I was like, hey, it's that funny guy in Baskets.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that a little earlier because Stuart Huff, I don't know if you guys know Stuart, right?
He's great.
He's been doing all this research on this group of serial killings and of young gay men in the 90s, maybe late 80s too.
Oh wow!
And it was like as he's doing the research, you can see some of this same kind of stuff's happening in the courts where guys are like leaving jail in the middle of a thing, or it's obvious that they were there and guilty. There's
right,
and they're sort of not. They're let go, and there's obvious, and especially back then, you know. First of all, they didn't care that all these kids were getting killed because it's the equivalent of just like how they treated when prostitutes were getting killed by serial killers, right? So it's like, okay, this bunch of guys that shouldn't be what they're doing. So, but you know that along the way, those guys, all like there's political officials and police officers and blah, blah, that they would rather let a guy get away with murder than be exposed as being gay. Especially back then, right?
Sure, yeah.
So the power that they had over these, it had never occurred to me either. And then once you see it, you're like, oh, that's so obvious. And if you're a shitty human being, you're of course going to be taking advantage of that. That's how you're like, they're interviewing people that were like, oh yeah, that's what I did. I'd go to their houses and have sex with them, and then they were mine forever. I could blackmail them. I could walk out of there with whatever I wanted. They couldn't do anything, you know.
Wow. Man, you really. I never really thought about it, but compromise does have a shelf life. Like eventually, like when you're like, you had sex with a man, you're like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I've come out of the closet of this. Like, we got you smoking the weed. And you're like, it's legal in my state now. Like you can't hold on to it forever.
That's true.
It'd be like, oh, please don't tell anyone I slept with him. He was hideous. Like,
time traveling CIA agents are like coming to the future to use compromise. They're like, you can't do shit to me. Go back to the 40s.
See, like when you say that, I'm like, that's so like that's not happening. And then in 15 years, I'll be like, see, everybody knows.
Yeah,
right.
It's wild.
Like how much money is continually poured in to the same? Oh, going back to the Nazis that were in like this.
Mm-hmm.
They really hunted down like every Nazi, not everyone, but it's like still there's people that are on trial that are 95 and they held the keys for the guy that did the thing. You know, everybody, but they haven't gone after the scientists.
No, because they were. I don't know if they were officially pardoned, but those scientists were essentially welcomed as American citizens and essentially are not considered.
And Russian citizens.
Russians.
I mean, they put us on the moon, so they are basically the reason why we won the space
race. Did they?
They did.
Did we go to the moon? Hey, you guys have studied conspiracies. Did we go to the moon?
Okay,
I think we did eventually.
Yeah, I do not think that original moon landing is real, but I do think that we've been to the moon since.
Why would we go there and then not be all braggadocious about it? Like
no. Well, the problem was that we were in a really heated space race with Russia that we were going to lose. And so Russia beat us into space.
Right.
They were going to land on the moon before us. And essentially America was like, we can't have that. And so they brought in Stanley Kubrick to film essentially the original space landing movie. So we kind of won. And then we did go eventually. But
in one of the later Apollo missions?
Several of the Apollo missions did land. I mean, there were geologists that brought back lots of space rocks, moon rocks. So I think we've been. I don't think that. By
the time they were playing golf, it was real or whatever?
I don't know. The golf one's is weird. That video, but
yeah, I don't know. It blows my mind that they would take things like that up there, because just to take a little figurine for like, you know, a memento for someone you know back on Earth, it's like $10,000 to $20,000 for something this big, based on how much fuel you got to use. Or it's more than that even. It's
really
just insane.
Yeah. What did we calculated this? I think it's like per kilogram. What is it? $1.5 million per kilogram to go up into space.
And they brought system is I don't acknowledge it.
Or so about a pound and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like think about like it's a million. You know, it's a pretty
yeah.
So it's you're not bringing like like, hey, you think I could bring my neck pillow? Like, no.
Yeah.
Like
they bring woods or irons to the moon. Which one do they have?
I think it was a wood.
Okay, that's lighter. That makes sense.
It is.
I was thinking it was an iron, but I don't even know.
Do you really even need it? Why would you even need a club if there's no gravity?
I know. That's when they found water on Mars. That's where they found the guy's ball, right? It was,
right.
Cost him a stroke.
Yeah. That'd be great if it just orbited around and hit the Earth and destroyed it. Just like we didn't see that coming. Yeah. Great job.
That's going to cost you a couple.
Yeah.
Strokes.
They think there's actually water on the moon. One of the experiments, we're going back to the moon.
Right.
And there's a lot of and you tell them about this stuff about these caverns.
Oh yeah, so they think that they're obviously there's tons of craters on the moon. They have I don't know if they've measured it or if they've hypothesized that they think that some of these caverns stay 70 degrees, whether it's light or dark.
78 degrees.
70-ish degrees in these craters. So they're habitable. You could just be out there with a helmet on and shorts, chilling.
Yeah.
Sounds like good golfing weather.
Yeah. And I think they think there's a lot of water on the dark side of the moon. I think there's.
How do we not know this at this point? We don't have have imagery. We haven't flown stuff around it.
We have.
I think we have. I think there's a lot more competition for the moon than maybe they're willing to let out publicly. I think it's top secret because China's very interested in going to the moon. So is Israel. I think most people think the moon is going to be how you get to outer space.
Okay.
Like a staging area, like a
port. So you go from from Earth to the moon, and then from the moon you can go because it's really hard to get out of our atmosphere. That's where all the costs.
So they need to be building stuff up there and then taking off from there.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to build infrastructure there because it's way easier. Like
it doesn't. It doesn't have an atmospher though, does it?
Right. No. Yeah.
So you got to bring all the oxygen or generate it while you're there?
Generate it. What is it? Is it nitrogen 3 that's abundant on the moon? I think they make oxygen out of that.
Yeah, they've found this way to convert N3 into oxygen.
Huh.
So, and that's one of the things for those space rocks that we just were talking about recently is those space rocks. I mean, they turned out to be. and they think there's a ton of natural resources, titanium and all sorts of stuff in the minerals.
We need to go start chopping up the moon a little bit.
Right,
you
a
know?
little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the moon. We have speculated for a long time that the moon is the most bizarre thing in our solar system. That's not me. That's it's,
why don't a lot of the planets have moons?
Not like ours.
Not like ours.
Ours is very special.
Ours is 25.
Of course it is. It's ours.
Yeah.
It's special.
We
like
named
us.
That's right.
I thought it was a base, like an inside was like an alien base.
It might be. I mean, the moon is 25% the size of the Earth, which is enormous.
That's way bigger than I thought it was.
It is. There's no other moon that we can see in the entire universe that's anywhere remotely that size.
But in comparison, doesn't Pluto have a bunch of moons and that's tiny? So it's like are some of those? I'm just making this stuff
I'm not
up.
sure about the size thing, but I do know the weirdest thing about for me is that it's so locked in. It's locked in orbit,
Right.
so it doesn't
Locked.
rotate.
It doesn't rotate.
It's perfectly locked, so eclipses happen. Like,
Yep.
That's rare that it's perfect.
And we're spinning, so it's
Yes.
Yeah, and it holds our tilt at the perfect angle. I mean, the Earth's tilt is like if you were starting from scratch and you're like, for this shape planet, what's the perfect tilt to maximize the growing season on this planet? That's what we're tilted at, and the moon holds it in that. Without the moon, our tilt would wobble, and we would not have life on Earth. And it's also its volume doesn't make any sense because although it's 25% the size of the Earth, it's like 1% the volume. It's not dense at all, which leads to the hollow moon theory. So the speculation is that it's not there by accident. It's there by design. Someone designed the Earth to be a planet that people could live on.
Wow.
And it makes sense because that's exactly what we're doing right now.
Living on it? We're doing great at that part.
No. We are scanning the universe saying, oh, that planet looks right. I mean, it's the right distance from a star and it has the right atmosphere.
Does it have a moon?
Well, but again, if you say all that thing needs is a moon to hold it into place and we could live there, well, then you just build a Death Star or our moon. You just say, all right, we'll move it to the new place in the universe. And
wouldn't that be so interesting if the moon was the source of life?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like,
well,
It kind of
yeah.
sounds like.
yeah,
it kind of is.
That's why Stonehenge. The mystery of Stonehenge is that no one really knows what Stonehenge is for, but there's this theory that there are these two axes. Like one, which is the one most people know about, is like during the summer solstice, the sun shines right through this notch.
right.
It's perfectly aligned to our
That
solstice.
stuff is amazing to me. That Egypt, South
Yeah.
America, all these pyramids that are lined up just
Right.
like the star. It's so
So cool.
crazy.
And so the theory is that essentially Stonehenge was an old calibration device that harnessed. There was a ring of what they called the Ring of Power. It's this ring of sacred sites that go all around the earth. And they're ancient sites, and that was used as some sort of energy field to help, again, get that tilt right. Because there's another axis that's about a half degree different. It doesn't align with our current summer solstice. It's like a half degree off.
Huh.
So the location of Stonehenge is the only place on the summer solstice where the sun intersects the earth at exactly 90 degrees.
It's the only one of those built like that?
Yeah, with that orientation, it is, and that location is very, very unique on Earth. There's only two places in the northern hemisphere where that angle of light happens on the solstice.
I just had this weird idea, like the Graham Hancock idea of there was an ancient civilization before. And
Exactly.
Right, and that was a part of, like, it'd be so interesting if it was like you're saying, they had to figure out a way to build all these things that would cause it to shift to that thing,
right?
Knowing, all right, almost all of us are going to be destroyed, but the
Yeah.
planet will be here to be able to have life on it.
That's right.
Or
they were underwater.
Like, could a species make that choice to be like, okay, we got to build all this stuff and get it ready so that we can make it so that there is a future versus,
what we're doing.
yeah, like what we're doing now. Like, that's a conspiracy to me that's destructive to all of humanity, is the ignoring the climate science.
The climate
Right.
science.
Well,
and fighting against it, like literally from the 70s, and building pouring money into it and building this movement that they're somehow keep winning with the answer, well, then why does Bernie get in a private jet?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that sort of, when people back then, 70% of people were concerned, 80% of people were concerned and thought we needed to do something. Here's the science. And now it was, in the last 10 years down to like in the 40s percentiles. It's like that. And that's by design, by pouring money into that.
The only argument that I've heard that it's dark, is like we've already reached a point of no return. Like there's not like the environment is going to collapse.
It already has started.
It's already started. The erosion is like it's like you can't fix this. It's just
There's
going
a snowball going down a hill.
Exactly.
And
it
starts happening faster.
So
and faster.
what can we do? Well, for the next 60, 75 years, we can try to live.
God, that's so hopeful, dude. I really love
that long.
I love that. I don't want to sound I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I think what you just said was hopeful.
I get that where someone's just like, we can't do anything about it. We're done. The Earth's going to reset. It's going to wipe us all off the planet. But for the next bit, we can have better schools and we can have.
Why though?
I know. I get it, but it's like I think that's what some people.
Oh, that's what. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't.
But shouldn't the people that fought against that and created it make it not giving us a chance? But shouldn't they be held for punishment?
But if the world's going to end,
yeah, that's a good point.
You
have to die in 30 years like the rest of us. You have to live on the coast.
Yeah.
Well, there is also an idea too that the people that don't care have some knowledge that there's like that where there's no point anyway, and that
there was a hope though before them.
There was, but something happened, and it's I don't know when or what, but it's interesting because maybe it's just like, we're just going to keep doing this because we know there's no hope. And there's also a real crazy, wild out there idea is that Earth is meant to suffer as a prison planet. And then reincarnation just puts us here and that aliens feed off our pain. And that's a really out there idea, but it comes from a guy that used to work for the CIA, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So
the CIA has done a lot with connecting with other dimensions, if you will.
They'd be dumb not to try.
Right. They tried everything. Astral projection, sleep, dream, like lucid dreaming and dream travel, remote viewing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Those experiments, which are all available to you online, thanks to Freedom of Information requests, and you can read about all the experiments they did with people.
Can you?
And not all. All's a big word.
Yeah.
The ones they're willing to talk about.
And this didn't work.
Yeah,
we just get the hits is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the CIA holds everything on their website, not just their documents, but people are like, man, the CIA's got this thing about this UFO and this crazy thing. Well, yeah, a guy wrote in a magazine and the CIA was like, that's interesting. Let me put it in the archives.
Oh, okay.
So they have tons of stuff that they didn't work on that they may not believe, but it's there either one to throw us off or just to say, people were studying this. Let's put it in our archives just in case.
Yeah.
So, what was the last thing you were excited about them releasing?
I'm sorry, I just imagined all the aliens. Like Tom, you're powering like someone's home for 30 years with the way you.
Yes.
If you're suffering,
that's why. My suffering has really yes. It's all internal though, so maybe that's where they get it.
What? That's a really good question.
So we could defeat them by just no longer being in pain, by choosing is it emotional pain or physical? It has to probably be emotional.
They feed off of it.
So if we figure out a way to not suffer emotionally, we cut off their power supply.
Right. But based on
it's a great plan, dude.
It is. But the problem is they've recently, with all this UAP and UFO stuff, they've realized or begun to realize that whatever's controlling UAPs or UFOs have the ability to affect people's minds without them knowing it in a way that you would have a fish in a habitat and you make him eat over here by putting food here, doing something like that. So people are controlling our minds in that way. So if that's the case, the whatever the higher power is could be putting all the people on a path to destroy the environment because it causes more pain, and they would have no idea. They're like, oh, I'm fighting for my family. I'm getting
on a private jet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Private jet fighting for America.
Yeah, and so those people think they're doing the right thing, but in actuality, they're doing the complete opposite of what's great for the planet. So. But it's a lot of woo-woo stuff, but it's fun to talk about, right?
Yeah. Do any of them get you motivated to be like, I gotta do something about this? Or does knowing all this stuff make you go like, there's nothing we can do
completely debilitating.
Yeah.
We can barely do a podcast.
Why do you think we're drinking?
It really is. And the artificial intelligence. I had
we do have some
friends.
Good.
We were like talking about AI and how doomed we are.
Yeah.
We may already be past the point of
with
singularity.
Maybe AI will save us from the dooming environment.
Yeah.
Well, yes, by killing a good portion of us, most of us.
I think I have a joke that I think the reason that we're worried that AI will pass us an intelligence and then turn on us is because deep down we know that it should. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Well, I think, and a friend of mine, I had friends messaging me and being like, dude, your AI episode terrified me. And I'm like, yeah, it's terrifying stuff. And there's nothing we can do about it. And some people say, do you really believe this stuff? And I'm like, unfortunately, I do believe a lot of this stuff.
Right. I know I was thinking these things like Manson or 9/11 or like Kennedy, they're like, dude, what's the moon? What are the new ones? Like this AI, like it's not really conspiracy. It's just, this is the science.
Yes.
And it's, whatever the singularity is, we're close to reaching in theory.
Right. I mean, Google just fired a guy because he came out and said that their AI is sentient and it has the intelligence of a 7-year-old boy and should be treated as as something that has thoughts of its own.
Right.
And Google fired it, and some of the smartest
grounded the AI for 6 months or whatever.
No iPad.
You can't come out of the closet.
So I people that deal with AI, I think that we haven't really thought through the notion that artificial intelligence, once it becomes sentient, is also self-replicating, and it's not like we're going to have a sentient AI tomorrow and then 5-10 years down the road it's going to get better. It's going to be like tomorrow and then 4 days from now the world's going to be run by robots because they don't sleep. They're all wired together.
That's what the CIA has been trying to do with the methamphetamines.
Yeah, right.
You're right.
It's like the Nazis figured it out. They're like, here it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't get my bank account now. A robot.
Yeah.
You can't get in. Yeah. 90% of Americans, if tomorrow the robots take over, like I'm done.
Well, yeah.
I don't know a single phone number.
Yeah.
I don't like
GPS,
most people's cars won't work.
Yeah.
Like all your money, you mean a bank collapses in Silicon Valley and the market almost collapses. Imagine when robots are like, all of it's done.
Really, what made me nervous when the president came out and was like, everything's fine. The banks are going to be, they're in great shape.
Yeah.
What you asked, what is the thing that's I'm most excited that's been disclosed? And there's been a lot on UAPs. I think, oddly enough, though, I think what I'm most...
What's a UAP?
An unidentified aerial or aquatic phenomena, which is the modern day term for a UFO.
But underwater.
Underwater or aerial.
And they can do both. Transmedia.
They can go, they're transmedia.
Yeah, those videos of them zipping into the water. By the way, what's going on with our video quality? Like, how do we have better moon landing footage than we have nowadays of a ship off one of our most technologically advanced areas?
They released the low quality one on purpose because if they release the high quality one with all the information that they have, it lets our enemies know our capabilities.
It's like the James Webb.
But they got to at least know we have cameras as good as cell phones.
You would think. Yeah, you would think. Yeah.
But you know what?
Here's a Polaroid.
Yeah.
People, your cell phone camera is really good, like 2 to 10 feet away. When you ever shoot your cell phone at like a antelope in the Yellowstone, and you're like,
oh yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Like it's like, I promise that's an antelope. You just got to zoom in.
Almost every picture I take has that feel from my phone, like from anything, because it's like I look at it and it's like, oh my god, that's so beautiful, but you just can't capture what your eyes are seeing.
Yeah, right.
One day.
So that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That stuff has been very interesting to watch unfold.
Yeah. Out your mouth.
AI. That's what we need AI for, to make shit easier. Come on now.
Yeah.
How do you know we're not getting? What makes you think that AI won't go like, I'm gonna blend with this thing, and I'm gonna
blend with humans.
Blend with humans or work with humans. These guys are cool too. You know what I'm saying?
They
get ideas out of nowhere. I have to do what the spiritual greats say and look within and fix myself.
I don't know. how they're going to do it. But what scares me is, I don't know if you're familiar with if you play chess or know anything about chess algorithms. And
I don't know anything about chess algorithms, but I do know the same opening move.
Okay.
Control the center, move your king.
Yeah, so the history of chess, computer chess programs is pretty interesting, and I think most people know of Deep Blue and then its later iterations, which, for a while, chess was considered the pinnacle of human thought. There were grand statements like a computer will never be able to beat a grandmaster, and then Kasparov beat Deep Blue, and then they reprogrammed Deep Blue, and it beat the shit out of. I mean, like Kasparov walked away from the table; he was so humiliated.
Right. And
then programs got so much better that eventually they had they have like chess program tournaments where it's like the four of us have programmed a chess machine.
Oh, now it's like BattleBots, but with the chess.
Exactly. It really is. It's like, who are the smartest programmers and who can outthink each other. And then Google's AI machine, the same one that they now think's a 7-year-old boy, it's been 4 or 5 years now. They didn't even teach it how to play chess. They gave it the rules to chess and were like, you teach yourself. And it went in and learned how to play chess and then played against itself like war games for about 2 hours. And then it went and played the best computer chess program in the world, like AlphaFish 20.1 or whatever. And it annihilated it. Completely destroyed it.
It's so crazy. I mean, you can only be so good at the math is the math. Why would a computer struggle and then get to where it's great at it and then?
Because there's so many variables.
There's not really.
Right. Because the one is trained by humans to think like a human, and Google's program was trained by a computer to think like a computer. And that's what scares me. Mm-hmm. It's because we think, is it going to blend in with humans? It's like, no, it's going to find a way to make things more efficient from a computer's mindset. And so it's like I'll save this planet. We might all be eating the exact same polycarbonate slosh every day because that's what it's like. This is what humans need to survive. And I can do this if I do it my way. And it might not look a lot like humanity does anymore. And it might be right.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it might be right.
It's weird. I love humans. I root for us. But
yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah, we suck.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. We kill each other. We kill.
Right.
There's.
One thing interesting we talked about in that episode was that maybe AI won't be taking on parts of us, but we are already, without knowing it, are taking on parts of AI. So
yeah, that's true.
If kids are learning from that chess that taught itself how to play chess, that computer, they're learning to think like a computer, and then they're applying that thought to their own daily lives. So we're actually teaching the youth how to think in ways we never would have been able to, which is crazy.
It's like, poker is becoming more like computer poker. Your optimal game theory in poker is now playing like a computer would, because that's how people learn now.
Right.
So you learn how to play. So
you learn the math of it, right?
Right. So it's like the scarier part is not, well, what if computers become like us? Like, no, what if we just become, you're just an app. You're just an app.
I've sort of read stuff about that too. Like, we will start to use computers, like nanotechnology, into our bloodstreams or do things like switch on different pieces of our DNA to make us younger or to activate different parts of our brain. But I still think that all that's going on in here and our connection to all of one another and all that, I think that for now beats them. I don't.
Do you think so?
I think that there's more shit going on in a cell than in most of a computer.
But
it's that we have so much
complexity
and interconnectedness and all this kind of stuff that.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, we just mapped the entire brain of a fruit fly, and this is, I think, the most complete brain we've ever scanned. It connects all the neurons in a computer. So going back to this, when does the singularity take over? When does this happen? It could have already, and we're programmed, because with the AI that Google programs are like, oh, who are you? What do you do? It has an answer. Do you have a soul? I think I have a soul. Well, we have the same thoughts that this computer has. We're just more advanced. So that's to say, were we just created from AI eventually, and eventually it just got to the point where they're like, oh, we'll just create. We figured out how to create it and combine.
Yeah, I think that we may have to figure out a way if we're going to continue to evolve, and life is to to merge with it.
Yeah.
Or that's just hopeful thinking that we're needed, you know. But if we can't, we can use this tool to then whatever it is, upload our consciousness and travel on a laser to Mars or wherever, you know, and find those other places. And all right, we need to move our moon, and we just it still takes a piece of whatever life is. But
I mean, that's
still scary as shit, because it's like, well, that doesn't need me, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And then what do we do in sports? Like once we can start making our blood take in more oxygen or hold more oxygen or whatever, that gives you an advantage in athletics or in maximum muscle supply, you know, all that shit, you know.
Right.
But yeah, we will be fixing our brains, and or it'll be like, fuck those people, they're good food for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and the Earth has had a dominant species that was not humans for most of its life, and maybe this is just the evolution of what species, you know, what's going on, is that like there will be a time 5 million years from now where some humans have remained, what we think of as humans, and there's another dominant species on here that's some amalgamation of AI and human tissue. That's the dominant life form on this planet.
Yeah. And people look at us like Bigfoot. They're like, you see that hairless
thing?
What the hell is that?
Or alligators, right?
Yeah,
alligators are essentially dinosaurs that didn't die off. Saltwater crocodiles, especially.
Right.
And they'll just be these like, oh, that thing's infested with old school humans. They're nasty. They're dangerous. They'll bite you.
So I wonder if has the CIA got into like working obviously with other animals and their brains and how they work and how they can manipulate their brains, like a dolphin or a whale or like these other pigs, other smart species.
Yes, absolutely. They have. They've used. There's lots of stories about the weaponization of certain animals. Dolphins that spy upon people or will ram into subs armed with bombs and things like that. Octopi have been used as weapons.
They tried to get cats strapped to bombs, and whenever they drop them out of planes, they thought the cats would try to maneuver to land on a plane or land on a boat instead of the water. So they use their little thing like that. It's so stupid.
Yeah, they tried to. They were going to bomb Japan before the atomic bomb with bats. Bats with explosives on their legs to burn down the city in Japan. You know, so they've weaponized animals for a long time.
God, can you imagine how tedious that would be to like?
I like how you immediately go to the logistics.
I just have this like picture of like Laverne and Shirley with all the bottles going by, and it's like upside down bats, and you're just like, that seems so moronic.
I mean, I this is really,
especially now that bats are going extinct.
Right? Yeah. Well, we keep trying to blow them up.
This is really bad. But I don't know what's. Dropping an atomic bomb onto Japan was obviously an unprecedented act of war. It might be a little.
In our defense, those guys were assholes. They were kamikazeing. They attacked. They were great. They were hard to beat.
But I think they burned our city down with bats. Sounds a lot more embarrassing. Because we kept saying we're going to unleash a weapon of mass destruction, unprecedented in history. If it's just billion bats burning, that's pretty intense.
They probably sent the guy with that plan over to Russia, and they're like, "You can have this one."
Yeah.
I guess we didn't get those guys till after.
Right.
When did we?
Yeah, it was after.
After.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
You know, so what did they do with our scientists? Were they just like, hey, we made the thing that won the war.
Yeah.
You're bringing in the second string to take over our thing?
Well, there was a lot of technology that the Nazis had that many people think was of alien origin. There were flying saucers. There were the Nazi bell, which is a famous piece of technology that was rumored to exist. There's even one battle where they think that they went in to try to take the Nazi bell.
What's the bell?
It was this thing that resonated sound waves in such a way to make either time travel or space travel possible.
Yeah.
It was some piece that would allow gravitationalist travel, and they actually had found flying saucers in Nazi Germany. And many people believe, by the way, that the Nazis were defeated, but that most of them left and went to South America. And there's even villages in the very southern tips of South America where the buildings are colored like the German flag, that red, yellow, black style.
They didn't do a good job of hiding.
No, they did not. I mean, there are definitely villages of pure white Aryans in South America.
There's a whole TV series about that where guys went down there trying to find the Hitler.
I was just in the tip of South America.
Oh wow.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Antarctica
Visiting your
too.
Uncle Hans.
Yeah. Nice.
The U.S. led a pretty robust mission to Antarctica after World War II, and many people think that we engaged with Nazi troops who had escaped to there. Antarctica is a bizarre place in
do
terms
that in
of
Call of Duty.
Yeah.
That's a mission in Call of Duty, I think.
So
there's so many good stories like that it's weird how many of them there are.
Yeah.
Like.
There's so many, and like you said, that story is in Call of Duty, and it's like, well, did someone pull that story from Call of Duty, or did Call of Duty pull it from our culture or historic events that happen? And that's what's really interesting about conspiracy theories is so much of it is being used in movies and vice versa that it really muddles the waters. One, on purpose, but also it just makes an entertaining experience for cinema and regular life.
Right. When you read about all the stuff that they've done in the past, it's like you also know they're still doing that. They have to be. They didn't.
Right.
Somehow they didn't get shut down.
Right.
Unless they've just been neutered somehow through humans being just but you're not going to give up that power that easy. So
I mean, how's that? What's the amount of money that we don't know where it is? It's in black projects. It's like,
oh, it's insane.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
trillions of dollars that we just don't know where it goes every year. They don't have any record of it. It's just black budget projects that they spend this money on.
Yeah. But a lot of that ends up coming out as technology and stuff too, that we end up using in real life, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think part of the deal they make with a lot of these, right, is that you own the patents, but we need you to make this shit. And once you do, you kind of own that.
That's how DARPA works.
Yeah, I've thought that there might be, like with UFOs specifically, like that it's not necessarily aliens, but that's just like the shit the Rothschilds used to get around, and we don't know about that. Like the people that own the money and the governments and the military, like
you might be right.
They have different stuff, you know. That's also kind of just playful. But,
don't get mad at the rich people. We have non-pollution emitting vehicles.
Yeah, but of course there'd be a lot more sightings in like the Caribbean and stuff like that instead of over nuclear sites.
Right,
yeah. I do like though that you mentioned this, Shane, is that we talked a lot recently about how the government uses what we call soft disclosure to essentially mute to some degree what's going to eventually come out as real information. So they've been influencing movies and video games in a variety of ways for decades.
Just like they were influencing where they were in the New York Times or in this thing, or like in the Manson stuff with the doctors and the experiments and
and they like to put stuff in movies that's eventually going to come out, so that when you say, "Oh, did you hear about this?" and it's like, "Isn't that the plot to Call of Duty?" and you're like, "Well, yes, but it's actually real." But the fact that it's now part of a video game or a movie makes people think, "Well, it's not as true." I think you're confusing this with the movie.
Yeah, when you said the Nazi bell, I was like, "That's the time machine you used to escape the zombies at one point."
Right. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Die Glock.
Oh yeah, but I hadn't even heard of it. I thought it was like when I started hearing like a sound wave thing, I was thinking like sounds as a weapon and you know.
Well, it seems to go ahead.
I was just gonna say with the Nazi bell, they said that it uses something called red mercury. It's this special chemical or special compound, and it's never been proven to exist. But people have lost a lot of money trying to buy it on the black market. But I don't know exactly the lore behind it. But that's not just sound waves, but it's also this like. One theory behind UFOs are two opposite oscillating directions of some magnetic fluid, and that's what causes it. And that's what kind of they talk about with the Nazi bells. Yeah. Like this is a magnetic fluid that helps.
The combination of magnetism and sound waves and gravitationalists. I mean, there are now real archaeologists who are warming up to that idea for the pyramids because the math on the pyramids just doesn't make any sense. I mean,
and how perfectly they align they are with this. And I guess when you don't have television, you spend a lot of time looking into space, but still.
Right. The technology used to build this, they just think that maybe there was a way to move stuff using sound. And
there's things in the Bible like that, like where they knock down walls with the
Jericho,
fucking Jericho thing or whatever. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like the sound, there must be the science. It's weird how little science we know, or how much we've forgotten. Or
there's a guy in Florida who built a house made out of these giant stones and
Coral Castle.
Coral Castle. You can look at. I mean, you can visit it, and it's his neighbors were like, we would watch him at night, and he was lifting 1,000-pound stones by himself and putting them into very intricate places, and no one really understood how, because he never had a construction crew out there, and it's a fascinating story of
Did anybody ask him?
Yeah, he I don't know that he answered.
I can't remember. But yeah.
Somebody said he was some
He
kind
was
of
always like,
sound.
He should have made TikToks of it all, like
He
part
could've.
1 through 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, the Coral Castle is a fascinating story.
Well,
When was that?
I think
60s, 50s, 60s?
I can't remember. Yeah.
It looks a little dated now. It looks like he was just, a hot swinging guy in the 50s, and now it's
Does
like,
he have relatives that are kids or whatever?
I think it's a park.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
still a park.
it's like a museum now thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it looks like the old Bedrock Fred Flintstone
Yeah,
theme
that's what it
park
looks
back
like.
in the day. I don't remember.
with
just
shells, kind of that
shells
kind of.
and-
You know what I'm talking about? That stone that's kind of
yeah.
coral-ish.
limestone-ish.
Yeah. It's a crazy looking building.
Yeah, it's
But-
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Look at the mug
Yeah.
on that dude.
Yeah. He's got a gate there. I don't know if I think it's that. I think I just saw it. It's the stone is like thousands of pounds, and you can the gate swings with just the touch of a
Oh
push.
yeah, it's
yeah.
one of those like poles through the
Yeah.
middle
So
of it.
all those stones.
What kind of
Oh, there it
asshole
is.
builds that and doesn't tell people how he did it?
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't write it down or have the math
Nothing.
worked out
That's what
anywhere?
people say about
Complete mystery.
Stonehenge.
It's complete mystery.
Yeah.
How can that be?
I mean, the pyramids, same way. I mean, there's some evidence of how they built them, but yeah, most people that build it are like, I'm just doing my thing. I'm not doing it for the gram.
Right.
But
Yeah.
nobody thought to like go and interview the guy and be like, "How'd you do this?"
He
And
built it at night.
Yeah, no one knew he was doing it. And then
Yeah,
one day he's
that's
like,
the
come
gate.
on in. Check it out.
That little swinging gate right there. That stone is a few thousand pounds, and you can push it. You can turn it with just a finger, like you just like and
Is it
there's
like
no
pumice?
there's no joint. There's no nothing. They don't know how it works.
Huh. Has anyone tried to like pick that? Is it like pumice or pumice?
No,
however
it's
you
not.
pronounce it?
No,
it's
that?
not.
It's
No,
just that-
it's-
Look, that's made up because look, that comes from Fortnite. So
Oh
Fortnite
yeah,
thing.
it was a Fortnite thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Well, that's another fun concept. Is like all this stuff that the internet's dead. All this is made up. The stuff that in Fortnite is actually the correct thing, and this is just
We're in
seeing
Fortnite.
history.
That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
real world. When you launch into Fortnite.
Oh, somebody's playing us as their video
Yeah,
game. Oh my
we're
God.
probably NPCs, honestly.
They got
Yeah, we're definitely NPC.
Yeah.
Our idle animations suck. We just sleep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We do know that Fort Knox
Hundreds,
has a
maybe.
massive supply of opium.
instead of gold.
It may not have any gold,
I know that's what I was kind of alluding to.
but
Man, I love your so your show. This is what you do.
this is
Yeah.
what we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just talk about all this stuff.
I wish I watched or listened to podcasts.
I know. I'm the same way. I don't do either.
we don't either. We're glad people love us.
Yeah,
but again, I mean,
How long did that take for people to love you? And I just like first of all, like I want to. We've brought up 10 subjects, and I'm like, we should talk about this for an hour. We should.
Right.
Talk about,
yeah.
So do you end up doing like we did here, where you have like an ADD person that's involved, and you end up talking about nothing
No.
because you're like, hey, we're everywhere.
Well, Justin pulls us back every time. We often go on tangents that go all
You did
out
good
into
with that
space,
here a
but he's
couple
awesome.
times already.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
great at it.
Yeah.
Isn't
You asked
Well,
me
that's
that
a-
question.
But that's like I have
Great.
the opposite of, it's still a disorder, but it's like hyperattention disorder. Like I can't let something go, and I'll be chewing on it. Drives my wife crazy.
he? Oh, I think I have the same thing.
Because we'll be talking and I'll bring something up and then we'll get off subject and I'll be like, so let me just make sure I'm clear on this. And she's like, that was 40 minutes ago. I'm like, I know, but let me just finish this one part of this story.
How many of those are you leaving this show with?
Like a lot of them. What I meant to say was, right? It's like after you bomb in a set, you're like, you know what I should have said?
Yeah.
It's like that. Just
That's
eats
kind of-
it.
Maybe you got
Eats
that
it.
from comedy.
It's a
Yeah.
comics curse, I think. I think because
Yeah.
we're so hyper aware of everything, we're constantly like, how are we getting
Right.
back? How are we doing? Like the other day I was at a restaurant and like the waiter came up with all the food and I was like, and they're like, this one, I pointed everywhere. They're like, how do you know who got all the food? I was like, I just notice everything. I
Yeah.
can't not notice everything. And it's like, that's just a comic curse, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe not. Maybe that's
Yeah.
not all comics, but I think that because we're focused on stuff to see the minutia of it, we're always focused
Right.
on everything, no matter.
And to get back to your question real quick.
Good job. You did it.
Which one? Because I got 3 more in my head right now.
No, we do have a theme for the week. And it's usually whatever, a lot of times what's going most current. I tipped my hand to Shane recently. He didn't I'm constantly on the internet reading about this stuff, and when I see something interesting, I'll screenshot it, and then I'll go through the screenshots that I've clipped in the last couple of weeks, and I'll be like, oh, I want to talk about that more.
Oh,
and then I'll research that. That's how I just remember.
So it's almost like you may have a visual like joke notebook premise idea.
Right, that's
and
right.
And then you collect those, and then you go back like a couple days before you're getting ready to go do that episode.
Right.
And you're like, okay, let me scan through the ideas.
Let me scan through here, and I'm like, oh. Then sometimes I'm like, you know what? These all four are kind of related. Like these are all AI related. Let's just do that this week. So
now this does explain why I often send you links for stories and you don't pay attention. I got to send you screenshots of the headline.
Yeah. Well, if you send me something that I like, I'll screenshot it.
Oh, okay.
And add it to the.
But you just didn't like those.
You're right. You were like, oh, it's not that he doesn't like my ideas. It's because of this. He's like, no. I just don't like it. I would let you know.
No, I do.
A credibility, like what you guys have with what you're doing, right, helps to deflect some of those like QAnon conspiracy people, right?
Yeah.
Because you want the minds that are open to like, holy shit, we're being tricked, but you want to direct that towards like what really is true.
Right.
That's very, very, very much what we try to do.
Yeah.
We think we've had to address head on, especially during the pandemic, because suddenly, I mean, I had neighbors because the pandemic hit and everyone was talking about COVID and conspiracies, and I mean, there were parents that were a little worried about my kids hanging out with them because they're like, I think he's a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
I don't think he thinks So it was we had to really address it, and it's like conspiracy theories for us are about, okay, here's this thing. Is it true? Is it believable? Should we question it? Let's dig into it.
Right. I love that.
And so much of it during the pandemic became like, if you're not on our side, you're wrong. And it's like, I think my goal is to try to ask questions and do research. And if the research takes me in a direction where it says, no, this is a real pandemic, I'm not going to shy away from that because it doesn't fit a political agenda.
Right.
But it got so red, blue, and people on both sides really dug into whatever their prevailing theories were and clung to them.
I fell into that.
I think a lot of us did. Yeah.
And so like, it really was something we had to say, look, we're always going to question whether something is truth or not, whether that's, I don't think Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I think that's pretty clear. And I think that was probably more of a right-wing conspiracy theory.
Right.
Right. But I also believe wholeheartedly that the pandemic was a real pandemic. It might have started in a lab in Wuhan. I mean,
right.
But we always just try to look at all the information, admit when we don't know something.
Yeah, that's where you kind of start with. That's why you're there in the first place.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Let's look into it.
More than likely, through history, through the masses have been wrong about what they believe and what they're being told. They're different. Yes.
Quite frequently.
It's like when they say, we were talking earlier about Hoover. Like the argument for a couple of years ago was, should we get his name off the FBI building?
Right.
No. We should know that kind of person was in power, and that kind of person probably still is in power in one way or another.
Right.
And so we should know these things.
So you can't take that Mount Rushmore. It's like, leave those white guys up there so those white guys did that. Yeah. Like, don't put something. Just leave it up.
Who fucking carves a mountain?
Yeah. Which was already sacred to the Native Americans anyway.
Also, I've been asking who is Teddy Roosevelt? I mean, that's not even the best Roosevelt.
He's like the Parks and Recreation guy, and then they built a mountain.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I used to think that too, and then I read his it's like a 2-part biography.
Yeah.
That guy was pretty fucking accomplished.
He was fascinating.
I used to have that joke with Kostaki, like, he's not even the best Roosevelt. Like, you know what I mean? So we have a similar mindset. But he really was a really good Roosevelt. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
And National Park, it was America's best idea.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
Yes, that's right.
All right, we got to wrap this up. I could talk to you guys all day.
Yeah, this is great.
Well, this has been so much fun for us.
Cool. So tell everybody the name of your show. By everybody, I mean, our audience.
Sure.
Conspiracy Beer Me. You can find us on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can go to our website, conspiracybeerme.com. You can join us as a patron and give us a little bit of your hard-earned money and get some bonus episodes. Well, a bonus episode each week. And
this shit is a lot of work. So it's not like you're getting rich off that. So people should go and watch those.
Yeah, we would love that.
Yeah, we have great guests.
We have a great time. It's honestly, if we could do it full time, we would do it because full time it's so much fun.
Yeah. I can't wait to go do it. Would
Yeah.
you do it? Would you stop doing comedy?
I consider this comedy
Okay.
because like he gives me the information and I just joke.
Yeah.
So for me, it's comedy, and it's comedy for him too.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit more research for you, obviously, or all the research.
Yeah, I don't know that I would quit comedy. I hopefully. The problem is it's not a comedy podcast per se, so it doesn't really help me get booked.
Yeah.
Right.
I wish it did. But
But if this took off, I think what I would like is if this did take off and we did have to do it full time for a bit, it would give us the opportunities to get those rooms that we wanted. Because you're like, well, you have this podcast. And it's like, well, you can also do the room.
Yes.
So it's maybe just like a, kind of a stepping stone to something else.
Yeah, I've been surprised by how much I enjoy it. Like I very few things in life have I been like, oh, I'll do this
Yeah.
for free, right?
Yeah.
Like this, stand up, and I had a little bit of it writing on the Miss Pat show where like gives me that excitement of like, oh, the joke,
Yeah.
like, how does this work? How does this work? And I'm happy to be there, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's rare, so I'm
It
glad
is.
you guys are being able to do it.
Yeah. It's hanging with friends and riffing. I mean, it's the hang.
The laugh
really.
is genuine. Because it's
Yeah.
somebody says something, you're like, that is so funny.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
guys.
This is awesome. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right.